She stood in the kitchen doorway, arms folded, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You can't even carry your own plate anymore, can you?" The maid, wiping down the counter, went still. He sat at the table, coffee mug trembling in his grip, and said nothing. She leaned closer. "What exactly do I keep you around for?" His hand slipped. The mug hit the floor. He didn't reach for it. Before we continue, please like and subscribe to help push this story to more viewers. And comment where you're watching from. 3 years earlier, they'd stood in front of 200 people at the Marriott Ballroom downtown, her in ivory satin, him in a charcoal suit that fit like it was painted on. He'd worked in logistics at a shipping firm in College Park, managing routes and inventory for a mid-sized distribution company that serviced half of Georgia. She managed a dentist's office in Buckhead, the kind with leather chairs in the waiting room and a coffee bar that served lattes while patients waited for their cleanings. They were practical people. They bought a craftsman-style house with good bones and a mortgage they could handle if they were careful. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a front porch with columns that needed painting. They talked about kids in vague, someday terms, the way people do when they think they have all the time in the world. On their honeymoon in Savannah, he carried her across the threshold of the Airbnb even though she'd laughed and told him it was corny. She'd kissed him anyway, tasting like champagne and promises that felt permanent. Their first year was ordinary in the best way. They argued about whose turn it was to take out the trash. They watched Atlanta United games on Sunday afternoons, her pretending to care about soccer, him pretending not to notice she spent most of the match on her phone. They hosted Thanksgiving and burned the mac and cheese. Her mother said it was fine, but ordered Domino's pizza halfway through dinner. They laughed about it later, in bed, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing circles on her shoulder. She said her mother would never let them forget it. He said good, they'd own it, make it a tradition. Burnt mac and cheese every year. She'd fallen asleep smiling. The headache started 6 months after the wedding. He thought it was stress. The new position at work demanded longer hours, more responsibility, weekend calls from drivers stranded on I-85 or dealing with delayed shipments. Then came the dizzy spells. One morning, he dropped his coffee mug in the parking garage at work. It shattered, dark liquid spreading across concrete like an omen, and he stood there staring at his hand like it belonged to someone else, like his fingers had simply decided to stop obeying. A neurologist ordered an MRI. The diagnosis arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in an office with diplomas covering one wall and a dying fern in the corner that nobody had watered in weeks. A degenerative neurological condition, rare enough that the doctor had to pull up research papers on his computer. No cure, no promising treatments. Progression unpredictable. Motor function would decline. Speech might slur. There could be cognitive effects later, maybe years from now, maybe sooner. The doctor said other things, handed them pamphlets, mentioned support groups. He was 34 years old. She'd held his hand in the parking garage afterward, but her grip felt like a formality, like something you do because it's expected. They sat in his Honda Accord for 20 minutes, neither speaking. A family walked past, a father swinging a little girl between him and his wife, all 3 laughing about something. She'd looked away first. For the first year after diagnosis, he managed. He switched to a desk job that didn't require driving clients around or hauling inventory. He used voice-to-text for emails when his hands cramped. He started physical therapy twice a week at a clinic on Piedmont that smelled like antiseptic and defeated hopes. The therapist was young, aggressively optimistic, the kind of person who said things like, "We're going to fight this together," while hooking him up to electrical stimulation machines that made his muscles jump. She went with him to the first 3 appointments, sitting in the waiting room with magazines she didn't read. Then she stopped coming. She said someone had to keep working full hours. Someone had to maintain their insurance. Someone had to be the responsible one, the strong one, the one holding everything together. He heard what she didn't say. Someone had to be the healthy one. The cane came next. Black aluminum, adjustable height, rubber grip worn smooth from use within 2 months. He hated it. She hated it more. She never said so directly, but he noticed how she walked 3 steps ahead of him in the Kroger now. How she stopped touching him in public, her hand no longer finding his automatically. How she scheduled dinners with friends on nights when his tremors were worst, coming home smelling like wine and someone else's perfume, talking too brightly about nothing. She started going out more. Book club on Thursdays. Yoga on Tuesday evenings. A weekend trip to Nashville with her sister that she planned without asking if he wanted to come. Booking a hotel with one bed in a room only she would sleep in. They hired the maid after he knocked over a glass of red wine on the cream-colored sectional they bought at Ashley Furniture. The one she'd spent 3 hours selecting, testing every cushion, debating between ivory and cream like it was a life-altering choice. The stain wouldn't come out completely. Professional cleaners tried twice. She didn't say anything. She just looked at it every time she walked past, a dark reminder of everything he couldn't do right anymore, everything he couldn't control, everything that was broken and couldn't be fixed. The maid was from Jamaica, late 50s, named Paulette. She had silver threading through her black hair and wore the same gold cross necklace every day, the clasp always precisely at the back of her neck. She came twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. She cleaned quietly, efficiently, and never made him feel like a burden when she picked up what he dropped. She had a way of appearing exactly when he needed help, but making it seem coincidental, like she just happened to be walking past when he struggled with the door handle or couldn't manage the buttons on the washing machine. She never asked if he needed help. She just helped. He couldn't say the same for his wife. "You're being dramatic," she told him one night when he mentioned feeling like an obligation. They were in bed, backs to each other, a chasm of space between them despite the queen-sized mattress. The sheets felt cold. "Everyone has hard seasons. You think I'm not struggling too? You think this is easy for me?" But her hard seasons seemed to be him. The cruelty started small. A sigh when he took too long buttoning his shirt, his fingers fumbling with plastic discs that suddenly felt enormous and uncooperative. An eye roll when he asked her to open a jar of Prego pasta sauce. Comments that could have been jokes if her tone had been different, if her face hadn't looked so tired when she said them, if her eyes hadn't gone dead and distant. "Guess I'm doing this myself. Again." Or, "Must be nice having someone wait on you all day." She'd say these things while loading the dishwasher he couldn't manage anymore, or carrying in groceries he couldn't lift, or picking up his dropped phone for the 3rd time that evening, snatching it off the floor with an exasperated huff. Paulette witnessed more than she should have. He knew because sometimes, after his wife left the room, Paulette would touch his shoulder. Just once. No words. But her eyes said everything. "I see you. I see what's happening here. I see what she's doing." His wife's resentment grew teeth. She stopped pretending in front of Paulette. One Friday afternoon, he struggled to lift a bag of groceries from the counter, his arms shaking with effort, fingers refusing to cooperate, the bag slipping. His wife walked past him, grabbed the bag with one hand like it weighed nothing, and said, "This is my life now. Doing everything. Every single thing. Might as well be alone. At least then I'd only have myself to take care of." Paulette was folding towels in the hallway. She heard. She looked at him, then at his wife's retreating back. She didn't say anything, but something in her expression shifted, hardened. That evening, his wife had friends over. For women from her book club, wine glasses and laughter filling the living room like it was a celebration. He stayed in the bedroom, door half closed, listening to them talk about a trip they were planning to Cancun. Someone asked where he was. "Resting," his wife said. "He's always tired now. I swear he sleeps more than he's awake. It's like living with a teenager." The way she said always made it sound like a character flaw, like exhaustion was something he chose, like his body's betrayal was a personality defect. Someone murmured something sympathetic he couldn't quite hear. His wife said, "It is what it is," and changed the subject to resort recommendations and which airline had the best direct flights. At physical therapy, his therapist asked how things were at home. The room smelled like rubber mats and hand sanitizer. A poster on the wall showed a cartoon brain with a smile, surrounded by encouraging phrases about neuroplasticity. "Fine," he said, focusing on the resistance band in his barely functional hands, watching his fingers shake with the effort of gripping something designed for elderly stroke patients. She looked at him the way Paulette did sometimes. Like she knew fine was a lie people told to survive the day, to make it to bedtime, to avoid conversations that couldn't be taken back. His condition plateaued for a few months, then worsened without warning. His right hand became nearly useless. He started dropping things constantly: phones, remotes, coffee mugs, his keys, a carton of eggs that exploded across the kitchen floor in a spectacular mess of shell and yolk. His wife bought him a sippy cup from a children's section at Target, bright blue with a cartoon dinosaur on it. She said it was practical. She said she was trying to help. She put it in the cabinet where guests could see it, right next to the regular glasses, like it belonged there, like it was normal. He tried to use it once. The humiliation tasted worse than anything he'd drunk from it. He went back to regular mugs and accepted the spills. Paulette started staying later on Fridays. She'd make him dinner after his wife went to her book club. Nothing fancy. Jerk chicken that fell off the bone, rice and peas seasoned with thyme and Scotch bonnet peppers, fried plantains that reminded him of a Jamaican restaurant they used to go to in Little 5 Points back when his wife still went places with him, back when she didn't flinch when he reached for her hand. Paula would sit with him while he ate, talking about her grandkids in Atlanta, her church choir practice on Wednesday nights, the hydrangeas she was growing in her backyard that were finally blooming after 3 years of stubborn greenery. She never mentioned his shaking hands, or the food on his shirt, or how long it took him to finish a simple meal. She just talked, easy and warm, like they were old friends. His wife came home one Friday and saw them at the table together. The book club had ended early, someone's kid sick. "Well, isn't this cozy?" she said, keys still in her hand, her voice doing something sharp and ugly with the word cozy, turning 2 syllables into an accusation. Paulette stood immediately, excused herself, started washing dishes with careful deliberation. His wife walked past without another word, but something in her face had shifted, tightened. Later, in bed, she said, "I don't pay her to have dinner parties with my husband. We were just talking," he said. "Right." She turned over, pulling the covers with her, leaving him cold. "Just talking. That's all it ever is." The next Tuesday, Paulette arrived to find an envelope on the counter. Cash, with a note in his wife's neat handwriting. "We're cutting back to once a week. Fridays only. Thank you for understanding." Paulette texted him that afternoon. He didn't respond. What could he say? He had no money of his own anymore. His disability payments went into their joint account. His wife managed the finances now, paid the bills, decided what they could afford, what was necessary, and what was frivolous. He'd signed over that control when he could no longer work, when the tremors made it impossible to write checks or navigate online banking without accidentally paying bills twice or not at all. He hadn't realized he was signing over his voice too, his right to make decisions about his own life. The mockery intensified. She stopped hiding entirely. In front of delivery drivers who brought Amazon packages to the door. In front of neighbors who made small talk at the mailbox about the weather and the Braves' latest losing streak. Once, at a family barbecue at her sister's place in Roswell, she handed him a plate loaded with potato salad and ribs and baked beans and said, loud enough for everyone at the folding table to hear, "Try not to wear it this time. We're running out of shirts that don't have stains. Maybe I should just buy you a bib." Her sister had looked away, suddenly fascinated by the cooler of drinks. Her brother-in-law suddenly needed another beer, standing up so fast he knocked his chair back. Someone's kid started crying, a convenient distraction that everyone seized upon gratefully. He'd gone inside, sat on the guest bed with its floral comforter that smelled like fabric softener, and thought about all the ways a person could disappear without leaving. How you could be in a room full of people and still be utterly alone. How silence could be a form of erasure. How people could watch cruelty happen and say nothing because intervening felt awkward, felt like crossing a line, felt like making someone else's private pain into a public problem. Paulette came every Friday, but the house felt colder now. His wife barely acknowledged her anymore. Just left lists of chores on the counter in her precise handwriting and went out. She joined a gym, started getting her nails done every week at a salon in Midtown, where they served mimosas and played music too loud. Bought new clothes, fitted dresses, and heels she wore nowhere in particular. Working out until her body looked harder, sharper, like she was carving away softness. She looked good, alive, like she was shedding something, like she was preparing for a version of her life that didn't include him, practicing for an exit she hadn't announced yet. One Friday in late September, He tried to carry his lunch plate to the sink. He'd microwaved leftover lasagna from 2 nights ago, managed to get on the plate without burning himself, decided he could handle the 10 feet from tabled counter. His legs gave out halfway across the kitchen. He went down hard, plate shattering, red sauce and cheese spraying across the white tile in an abstract pattern. He lay there, stunned, hips screaming, unable to get up on his own, unable to do anything but wait for help like child. Paulette rushed over from the laundry room where she'd been folding towels, but before she could reach him, his wife appeared in the doorway. She'd come home early, some meeting canceled. She still had her gym bag over her shoulder, still in her workout clothes, skin glowing with exertion and health. She stared down at him, not with concern, not with fear, with disgust. "Really?" she said. "On the white tile? Do you know how hard it is to get tomato sauce out of grout?" Paulette helped him up, her hands gentle but strong, her voice soothing in a way that made his eyes burn with unshed tears he refused to let fall. His wife turned and walked away. He heard her on the phone minutes later, laughing about something, her voice bright and untroubled, like nothing had happened, like her husband wasn't sitting on the floor covered in pasta. That night, after Paulette left, after the tile was clean and the broken plate was in the trash, he told his wife he wanted to talk. She said she was tired. He said it was important. She said, "Everything's important to you now. Everything's a crisis. Everything requires a discussion." "I'm still your husband," he said. They were in the living room, her standing by the window with her arms crossed, him on the couch because standing for long conversations wasn't possible anymore, because his legs didn't have the stamina, because everything took more energy than it used to. "Are you?" She was looking out at the street, at the neighbors' houses with their porch lights coming on in the dusk, at a world that was moving forward while they stood still. "Because from where I'm standing, I'm a nurse. An ATM. A maid. Oh wait, we have one of those. Had one. What am I to you exactly? Besides exhausted. I didn't ask for this." "Neither did I." She turned to face him finally. Her eyes were red but dry. "I married a man who worked, who drove, who could open his own jars and carry his own plates, and didn't need someone to cut his food like a toddler. I didn't sign up for this. For any of this. The vows. Don't." Her voice went hard as iron. "Don't quote vows at me. You know what's not in the vows? The part where you're 36 and your entire life becomes about managing someone else's decline. Where you can't make plans because you don't know if he'll be having a good day or a bad day. Where you're too embarrassed to invite friends over because your husband might spill something or fall or need help with something basic. So what do?" he asked, though he already knew, had known for months. She looked at him for a long moment. Her face was tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. "I don't know yet," she said finally, "but I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being the only adult, the only one making decisions, the only one holding everything together while you just exist and need things. I'm trying. Are you?" She picked up her purse from the couch, that expensive Michael Kors bag she'd bought last month. "Because it looks a lot like you've given up. Like you're just waiting for everyone else to handle your life for you. Like you decided being sick means you don't have to try anymore." She left the room. He heard the bedroom door close. Later, much later, he heard her crying through the wall, muffled sobs that she tried to hide. But she didn't come out, and he didn't go to her. The distance between them had become too vast to cross in one night, or maybe ever. 2 weeks later, on a Friday morning in October, Paulette arrived to find his wife in rare form. She'd been up since dawn, cleaning aggressively, moving furniture with scraping sounds that echoed through the house, throwing things away with decisive violence. Manic energy, the kind that meant something was about to break, some pressure valve finally releasing. He was at the table, trying to drink coffee from a regular mug because he refused to use the sippy cup anymore, refused to surrender that last piece of dignity even though his hands were barely cooperating. Coffee sloshed over the rim, pooling on the placemat his mother-in-law had given them, hand-stitched with their initials. He set it down before he dropped it, before he gave her another reason. His wife walked past him, stopped, turned back. She was wearing workout clothes, hair pulled back, so tight it looked painful. Her face was flushed. "You know what your problem is?" she said. "You gave up. The second you got that diagnosis, you just gave up. You sit there and wait for people to do everything for you. You've made yourself helpless. Paulette was in the doorway with a mop and bucket. She set them down carefully, deliberately. That's not fair, he said quietly. His voice came out shakier than he wanted, than he meant it to. Fair. His wife's voice pitched higher. You want to talk about fair? I'm 36 years old and my life is over. I come home to this. Every single day. This. She gestured at him, at the coffee spill, at the cane leaning against the table, at all of it, at everything he'd become. Paulette stepped forward. Ma'am, don't. His wife held up a hand. This is between us. This is my marriage. You don't get a say. But it wasn't. Not anymore. Not with Paulette standing there bearing witness. Not with the neighbors who could probably hear through the walls, who'd been hearing for months. Not with the life they'd tried to build now collapsing in the bright, cruel light of Friday morning. His wife moved closer to him, her voice dropping to something worse than yelling. Something cold and precise and surgical. You can't even carry your own plate anymore, can you? She leaned in, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something new she'd started wearing, expensive and floral, and nothing like what she used to choose. What exactly do I keep you around for? What do you contribute? What do you do besides exist and need things and make me responsible for everything? His hand slipped. The mug hit the floor. Coffee spread dark across the white tile like blood, like proof of her point, like evidence in a trial he was losing. He didn't look at it. He looked at Paulette, and Paulette looked at his wife with an expression that could have stopped a train. Ma'am, Paulette said, voice steady as a held note, steady as a heartbeat. I think you need to step back. His wife laughed. Actually laughed, sharp and bitter and ugly. Excuse me? Excuse me. I've been coming here for 2 years, Paulette said. I've watched you. How you talk to him. How you look at him. How you treat him like he's furniture you wish you could throw away. Like he's garbage you're stuck with. And I'm done watching. I'm done pretending I don't see it. You work for me. His wife's face was going red, blotchy with rage. I pay you. You don't get to talk to me like. I work for both of you. And I'm telling you right now, you're crossing a line you can't uncross. You're saying things you can't take back. Things that will live in this room forever. His wife's hands were shaking now, but not from any condition. From fury. Get out. Get your things and get out of my house. Right now. Paulette didn't move. She looked at him instead, waiting. Her eyes were calm. You want me to go? He should have said yes. Should have de-escalated. Should have protected what little remained of his marriage, his life, his fragile peace. Should have chosen the path of least resistance like he'd been doing for 2 years. But he was so tired of protecting the wrong things. So tired of making himself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. So tired of accepting cruelty as the price of being cared for. No, he said. The word came out stronger than he expected. Clearer. His wife stared at him like he'd struck her. Like he'd done something unforgivable. Like he'd betrayed her. What did you just say? I said no. His voice was quiet but certain. She stays. For a moment, no one moved. The coffee dripped off the edge of the table, a steady rhythm. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. A dog barked. His wife's breathing was audible, sharp and fast. Then she grabbed her purse from the counter, keys jangling violently. Fine. I'll go. You two can have each other. She looked at Paulette. Don't be here when I get back. I'll mail your final check. She looked at him, and her eyes were empty. And you need to think about whether you want a wife or a nurse. Because I'm done being both. I'm done being anything to you. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. Her car started in the driveway, engine revving too high. Tires squealed slightly as she backed out too fast, nearly hitting the mailbox. Paulette cleaned up the coffee. He sat there, shaking for reasons that had nothing to do with his condition. His entire body felt like an earthquake fault line, everything inside him cracking open. When she finished, she sat down across from him, her hands folded on the table, her gold cross catching the light. You okay? She asked. No. She nodded. Good. Lying won't help now. He almost smiled. Almost. She's been building to this, Paulette said. You know that, right? She's been looking for a reason to leave. An excuse that makes her the victim instead of the person walking away. You just gave her one. but she would have found something eventually. Maybe I gave her good reasons. By getting sick, Paulette's voice sharpened. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. And you need to stop giving her permission to treat you like you're less than human. Like you're not a person anymore, just a problem to solve. She's my wife. She was your wife. But when's the last time she acted like it? When's the last time she touched you with kindness? Looked at you with love instead of resentment? He didn't have an answer for that. Couldn't remember the last time she'd touched him at all. They sat in silence. Outside, a lawnmower started up, the neighbor's weekly Friday ritual. Someone's dog barked at a squirrel. The mailman's truck rumbled past, brakes squeaking. Life continued, oblivious and ordinary and impossibly normal, while it fell apart in real time. My husband had a stroke, Paulette said finally. 17 years ago. He was 52. Strong man. Worked construction his whole life. Built half the houses in East Point with his own hands. Hands like iron, people used to say. After the stroke, he couldn't walk right. Couldn't talk right. Needed help with everything. Eating, dressing, bathing. Everything. She looked out the window, at something only she could see, some memory playing behind her eyes. I was angry. Lord, I was angry. At him. At God. At myself for being angry. I had to quit my job at the hospital to take care of him. We lost our house. Moved into a smaller place, a rental in a part of town I didn't know. I was 40 years old and washing my husband like he was a baby. Some days I cried in the bathroom because I couldn't cry in front of him. Because he knew. He knew what he'd become, and it was killing him slower than the stroke had. What did you do? I made a choice. Every single day, I made a choice. To see him as my husband, not my burden. To remember who he was before the stroke, and who he still was inside that broken body. He was still the man who'd held me when my mother died. Who'd raised 3 kids with me. Who'd danced with me at our daughter's wedding even though his knees hurt. Who'd kissed me every morning before work for 28 years. She looked at him directly, her gaze unwavering. Your wife, Paulette continued, she's grieving. I understand that. But grief doesn't give you permission to be cruel. And you need to stop accepting cruelty like it's all you deserve now. Like being sick means you have to take whatever people give you and be grateful for it. What do I do? Whatever you need to do. But stop shrinking yourself to make her comfortable with her own choices. Stop apologizing for being sick. Stop acting like you owe her something for staying when she clearly doesn't want to stay. Stop waiting for her to decide your worth. His phone buzzed. A text from his wife, staying at my sister's tonight. We'll talk when I'm ready. Don't contact me. He showed Paulette. She read it and shook her head. She's making you wait. Making you worry. Making you feel like you're the one who did something wrong. It's a power play. Or she needs space. Maybe. But you need to think about what you need too. When was the last time you thought about that? He couldn't remember. His wife came back 3 days later. Sunday evening. He was watching football, the Falcons losing to Tampa Bay in a game that felt like a metaphor, when he heard her key in the door. She came in with an overnight bag, looking tired but resolved, like someone who'd made a difficult decision and was committed to seeing it through. She sat down on the opposite end of the couch. Silence stretched between them like a canyon, like the distance between who they'd been and who they'd become. Finally, we can't keep doing this. I know, he said. I think. She stopped. Started again. I think I need to leave. For real. Not just for a few days. For good. He'd known it was coming. Had known for months, maybe longer. But hearing it still felt like falling, like the ground dropping out from under him. Okay, he said. She looked surprised. Okay, that's it. What else is there to say? You already left. You're just making it official. You left months ago. I've just been too stupid or too hopeful to acknowledge it. She looked down at her hands. Her wedding ring was still there. She twisted it absently, a habit she'd had since they got engaged. I'm not a bad person. I didn't say you were. I tried. For 2 years I tried. I really did. I know. Do you hate me? He thought about it. Really thought about it, turning the question over in his mind like a stone. No, I'm just tired. Too tired to hate anyone. Too tired to be angry. Just tired. She nodded, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'll move out this week. I'll take what's mine. We can figure out the house later. I won't fight you on anything. I just want this to be over. Okay. She stood, then hesitated. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed. Me too. She went to the bedroom. He heard her moving around, opening drawers, the sound of hangers sliding on the rack. On the TV, the Falcons fumbled on their own 20-yard line. He kept watching anyway. She moved out on a Saturday in October, the air crisp with false promises of fall. Took half the furniture, leaving strange gaps in rooms that had felt too full before and now felt cavernous. Her sister and brother-in-law helped, loading a U-Haul in grim silence. No one said much. Her brother-in-law shook his hand on the way out, an apology in the grip that neither of them acknowledged aloud, a recognition of failure that didn't need words. The house felt enormous after. He slept on the couch for a week because the bedroom was too empty, too full of ghost impressions of a life that no longer existed. Paulette came Fridays still, but also Tuesdays again, appearing at the door with her key and her supplies like she'd never left. She didn't charge him for Tuesdays. When he protested, she said, "Hush. I'm old. I'll do what I want. You going to argue with an old woman?" He found a lawyer through a disability advocacy group downtown, a woman who specialized in cases like his. Filed for a formal separation of assets. His wife didn't contest it. The papers came back 6 weeks later. She'd already signed, her signature neat and final at the bottom of every page. He heard from her sister that she was dating someone, a guy from her gym, personal trainer. The news didn't hurt the way he expected. Mostly he felt tired. Mostly he felt relieved that it wasn't his problem anymore, that her happiness or unhappiness was no longer something he had to monitor or manage or feel responsible for. His condition stabilized for a while, then got worse again in the way the doctors had warned him it might. He needed more help. A home health aide came 3 times a week, a woman named Margaret from Nigeria with a no-nonsense attitude and gentle hands that never fumbled. She was efficient, kind, and didn't pity him. Paulette approved, which somehow mattered. On a Friday in early December, Paulette made oxtail that fell off the bone and brought him a Christmas cactus in a blue ceramic pot. "My grandmother always said these bring good luck," she told him, setting it on the kitchen table. "I don't know if that's true. Probably not. But they're hardy. They survive when you forget to water them. They bloom when they want to, not when you tell them to." He put it on the windowsill where the light was best. The divorce finalized in January. He signed papers at his lawyer's office, his signature shaky but legally binding. His ex-wife wasn't there. They'd never spoken again after she moved out, everything handled through lawyers and brief, cold emails about mail that still came to the wrong address. His condition continued its unpredictable progression. Some days were better than others. Some were catastrophically worse. He learned to measure his life in smaller victories. Making it through a meal without spilling. Getting dressed without help. Having a conversation without his words slurring together into an incomprehensible mess. He learned to celebrate what he could do instead of mourning what he'd lost. Spring came. Then summer. His ex-wife got engaged. Her sister told him, awkward and apologetic over text, like she owed him the information. He said he hoped she'd be happy. He meant it. Whatever anger he'd carried had burned out, leaving only a kind of distant hope that she'd found whatever it was she needed, whatever had been missing in him or in their marriage or in her own heart. Paulette brought him to her church one Sunday in July. He hadn't been to church in years, wasn't sure he believed in much anymore besides the basic cruelty and occasional grace of existence. But the choir was beautiful, voices rising in harmonies that made his chest tight. The sermon was about resilience, about bending without breaking, about the difference between surviving and living. And when people welcomed him after, no one looked at his cane first. They looked at him, at his face. They shook his hand or touched his shoulder and asked his name and meant it. That afternoon, sitting on his front porch with Paulette, watching the neighbors' kids ride bikes in the street and fireflies starting to emerge in the dusk, he realized something had shifted inside him. He wasn't waiting anymore. Not for his body to cooperate. Not for someone to save him. Not for his life to look like he'd planned when he was 25 and thought he understood how the world worked. Not for an apology that would never come from a woman who'd already moved on. He was just living it. The life he had, not the life he'd lost. Paulette stood to leave, gathered her purse. Same time next week? Same time, he said. She paused at the steps, turned back. The evening light caught her face, the silver in her hair. You know what you are? What? Still standing. The Christmas cactus bloomed in January, 6 months late, bright pink flowers against dark green leaves. He sat by the window and watched them open, one by one, in their own stubborn time.